But I'll let you know when someone needs to press play on that stuff. But for right now, yeah, as Roger said, my name is Aaron Tate. I'm the Director of Emerging Technology at Center for Brain Health. I kind of got thrown into this position when my predecessor left during the height of the pandemic. And in fact, she left the day the email went out that froze all raises and promotions for the university. So I had about a year and a half there where I was just the interim. And so finally became the head of the director of emerging technology. But during that time, during the pandemic, we did not let that slow us down at all. We had two digital health platforms that we had in the works or planned for right before the pandemic, and one of which being the BrainHealth Project, which is a 10-year longitudinal study that is really, centered on the science that we'll get to, but is really a digital health platform at its core. And then Charisma, which is the project that I've been on for going on 10 years now, and the one Roger mentioned about, creating these virtual worlds. So we'll dig a little bit deeper into both of these. So the BrainHealth Project, there's a 3-minute video here that I'm going to play, and that's really going to give you a high-level overview, and then we'll dig down into some of the ways that we engaged and reached the participants in this research study over the pandemic. So somebody on that side may need to press play. Right. I love that video just because it does such a great job of explaining, kind of the process of the dashboard, the experience you get through the dashboard. But what it doesn't tell is like what the intention was and what the reality that we got struck with during COVID was. So, original.
Aaron,
Yes.
okay, as you know, the watering hole, the animals interrupt each other.
Do it.
So, Damien, are you still on in the meeting? I can't see who the people are on the list.
Yes, I'm in the meeting.
Okay, can you just explain who you are to Cassini and Aaron and what you're working on at the moment? And we'll try and connect it to brain health.
Okay, I'm Damien Nyausa. I'm actually a visual and performing arts doctoral student in arts and humanities. I currently I've been trying to figure out what my research is going to focus on for my PhD, because I'm rounding up my coursework this semester, and I should be starting up with my field research, which is supposed to move me, give me that transition into my research goals, my research topics. So, but along the line, I've been always having communication with Roger, and he has been very helpful. So I've always been attracted to doing something that has to do with the something that has to do with mental health, and how performance can also come into play in that respect. So I'm looking at performance installations and how can it be more effective and viable when it's situated in a particular context of the society, like the mentally disenfranchised. So I'm trying to, it's a work in progress, but the topic I'm actually looking at right now is theater for emotional therapy in mentally challenged communities by applying digital enabled performance installation modes and techniques. So it's still a process, and it's still going to be, it can still later change into something more situated, more scoped into something I can't really work on the whole mentally challenged. I have to there are different forms of mental, there are different forms of how will I put it, mental issues. So you have to pick out, okay, what aspect do I really want to focus on, and how can performance come into play to also tend to help, if it's maybe by in cognition, and maybe help them boost more of their attentiveness and ability to observe more. But so it's something I'm really working on, but that's actually a brief of what it's all about. So
Aaron, maybe you can respond. How can the performing arts be part of your project, and how do performing arts affect mental cognition functions?
Absolutely. No, I mean, as I think in the video, you saw this, we have this wheel of components that is used to generate the brain health index, and, innovation and creativity are measures that sub-measures that are part of those four main components. So, you really see the ability to innovate and the ability to be creative in those things in that the performing arts particularly increase your overall brain health. So by doing these innovative and creative tasks, as Roger is well documented, that we see this connection between expertise in the performing arts and expertise in STEAM areas. So I think it's very connected.
Okay, so you can go ahead, Aaron.
Well, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, so we were planning on launching the BrainHealth Project pilot in March of 2020, which, if you can think back that far, that was right around the time everything started shutting down. The intention before COVID hit was we were going to have 200 people in the pilot. It was going to be, we were going to use as much of the online platform that we were in the process of building as we could. Hopefully, at least the assessments would be fully delivered online, some in-person training, some online training. Communication was going to be handled manually. We had hired, additional interns just for communicating with and tracking certain parts of the project. And a lot of it was the coaching sessions were going to be done mostly over phone. But, I don't know, a lot of y'all probably may not know Dr. Sandy Chapman, but she's our chief director and founder at the Center for Brain Health. COVID was not going to slow her down. So she really, we actually changed the name of the pilot to Project Rhino, because once a Rhino starts charging, there's nothing that can stop it. And so from there, we met all our goals. We had 184 post assessments on the Brain Health Index. All the training was delivered online. The assessments were delivered online. We stood up an automated communication system and had video coaching sessions over Zoom. So that's kind of right at the start of COVID, the first 3 months, we went ahead and got that pilot.
Okay, so one of the comments, and other people can interrupt, is, you've explained to me numerous times that the concept of mental health is misleading, that you're either healthy or sick. But the good news is we're all mentally different. And so your coaching, we don't all want to be football players, thank God. So you don't need a football coach. But this idea of coaching people who are mentally different, and I think part of your assessment is just identifying mental skills that people are really good at, which maybe are better than the average person, and others where they're every 3 months they're a little bit different. So you want to just comment on mentally different versus mentally sick?
So yeah, the pilot program particularly, we really focused on a healthy population. We wanted to track and I say healthy, a neurotypical population. We really wanted to focus on what the training that was being delivered in conjunction with the assessments how that would, change their scores. And so we're really trying to refine this brain health index so that it's a more accurate measure that can be applied widely. Having said that, so in the initial pilot, a lot of people were screened out. I think we had 300 and something people sign up for the pilot, and of that, it was a little under 200 that we actually went ahead and took into the project. So from there, now that the project is kind of scaled out wider, we've really taken a lot of those screener questions out. So we'll still take them into the project, and we're, tracking if there's anything that they would have been screened out for previously. We're tracking those things so that, we really can, with this big of a data set that we're developing here, we can, create the buckets based on the data so that we can look at different research topics throughout the course of the 10-year study. Does that answer your question, Roger?
Yeah, and are you still taking volunteers?
We absolutely are, and I will get to that. We can talk. I'll give you all a link at the end.
I'll stop interrupting you.
Oh, you're fine. So this screen here is what you're, after you sign up for the project, you go through, admittedly, a rather lengthy consent form. You will land on your dashboard, and this is kind of the structured way we wanted to break this kind of bigger assessment up into these digestible pieces. So you'll see that it's like 15, 8, 15, 25. These are different sections of the assessments, and they're broken up so that people can do them over the course of, a week or so. Some people just sit down and plow through them all, which is fine, but some people will break them up over the course of a couple of weeks. Now, the one thing about it is they do need to be done within a couple of weeks. So we have like a snapshot in time of your brain health, but you get plenty of alerts to let you know that, the time that you have to complete it is almost at an end. So yeah, this is what the assessment looks like, and this is how it breaks down when you get even one level down. It even breaks it up even smaller. So you could do it in 3-minute sections if you're, in line at the grocery store or something, wanted to do one of the assessments, that's fine. When you go through this would be, you know, a couple of screens like one of the questions might look like, and this is one of the cognitive score questions. And it's really these kind of, I think this one is, I can't remember what this one scores, but it's, you know, it gives you this proverb and it asks you to type its meaning as you take it. And that lets them measure, you know, one of the cognitive subdomains they're measuring. You'll get once you finish all your assessments, you'll get an email telling you that, you know, when your score is ready. Then you would go back to your dashboard and it would no longer have assessments, but rather your score. And so this is an example of the dashboard that has 2 time points. So you can see that, as you said earlier, you know, there's neurotypical and there's all types of, you know, things on the spectrum, but really none of that matters with the Brain Health Index because you're not comparing your score against anyone else. It's you against you. And so you try to increase or even maintain your Brain Health Index over time. And this becomes especially, you know, we lose our cognitive ability the older we get, right? That's just a fact of life. And so, you know, doing some of these trainings that we have will hopefully help you maintain that cognitive ability even longer. So, let me back to this real quick. So your score actually breaks down into 4 different subcomponents: cognition, interaction, well-being, and daily life. And then you can drill down into those subcomponents, and you can see the next level of those. You can drill down into those components and see the subcomponents. This would be like abstraction, reasoning, cognition, things like that, innovation. And then, you know, also for interaction, it would be more social-based subcomponents. Well-being would be sleep and stress, things like that. So after you get your score, you would set up a coaching call. You could schedule this call directly in the dashboard, and then you would meet with a clinician in a video coaching session that's also on the dashboard. And they'll go over the score with you and help you kind of process what it means and where you're at and things like that. Once that's over, you get that feedback. You get this kind of card on your dashboard that lets you submit a reflection. It gives you a survey that asks you what your 2 biggest takeaways. So this is, you know, designed to create accountability for them. They were tracking those things that they decided they wanted to do in that coaching session, and then we're letting them log that over time. And I got to speed through this. So this is the training dashboard. You would get training courses such as our online SMART, which is strategic memory, advanced reasoning training. You know, it goes over things like integrated reasoning, innovation, strategic attention, things like this. And you also have weekly challenges that's designed to just give you little things you can do to apply brain health in your real life. We also have a habit formation feature where you can select one of these habits that you want to try to do every day, and then you track your streaks over time. And it's just a way that you can have some accountability to form these habits. So they say it takes 66 days for something to become a true habit. So you get like level 1 through 5, that the total amount of days that it takes to get level 1 through 5 on a habit equals right at 70 days. That's just the progress bar for the habits. Then we have our resources tab. So for those that, you know, not everybody's going to take the time to sit down and do the training, you know, pay attention to habits. Some people, you know, we want to give multiple types of content that people can consume. Some people just like, you know, going through academic articles to talk about brain health. And that's really what the resources tab is. It's a curated list of articles that our clinicians have found relate to the Brain Health Index and the components that it's made of. So, having said all that, you can see here in around March of 2020, we were with 300 and something people. And then you see a pretty flat consistency there. Then after our 3-month pilot, started opening it up to few more people, but then really at the start of 2021, January 2021, we really started to open the floodgates and let people sign up in earnest. And during our February lecture series, we had 20,000 people registered for that event, and of that, I think 6,000 attended. And so we put the link out there then, and over the course of the next few months, we received a huge increase in. And so keep in mind, this is a study. You know, what study at UT Dallas can say that they recruited 2,000 people in the course of a couple of months? But that continued to climb over the following year, 2021 into 2022, and then this just at the start of 2022, it's really ramped up. You can see this kind of hockey stick curve here where it's just spiking up. This last month, we recruited in 1 month 2,000 participants. You know, we've made a lot of improvements to the dashboard over that time. It's a constant work in progress. We're constantly responding to user feedback and trying to create, you know, while the science stays the same, the brain health assessment, I'm not going to say it stays the same because it has evolved a little bit, but it's not in response to, in response to the data we've collected, not like user feedback. But we do, you know, as far as the user flow and user experience, we have, you know, modified that over the course of the project to hopefully make it a better experience for the users, so, or the participants. We've also seen some pretty good results. You know, so you see here, this is our brain health index score time, and this is these cycle numbers. So, you know, regardless of whether you sign up for the pilot or you signed up last week, that first index that you would complete is considered cycle 1. Cycle 2, cycle 4, they're delivered every 6 months. Every 6 months after the initial cycle. So this is kind of how we've seen the score slightly rise, which is good. You know, the brain health index does account for some of these, you know, practice effects, but overall, it's been a really positive result.
Okay, Aaron, you've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to ask Cassini. He's been taking notes like crazy. Cassini, you want to make a comment on what you've heard so far from Aaron?
Well, actually, so first, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually trying to take some cheat sheets. I've got a project with a car company here in North Texas. We're trying to do something rather similar, which I'll sort of speak to very briefly. So it was really just trying to steal intellectual property.
Okay.
Okay, but why don't you just mention
our COO is a lawyer. Fun fact.
Say that again?
Our COO is a lawyer. Fun fact.
The project that I have ongoing with Toyota, that it explores, we're living longer, but we're not healthy enough to be able to also drive for those years that we're living longer. So the goal of this project is to see if we can lengthen the driving years of the elderly. And so a lot of what you've described here, your index, is very similar to what we're trying to push Toyota to do for their Toyota app, particularly for the elderly. And the 4 areas that you identified, cognitive, social well-being, and then you said real life experience was, I think, the 4th, kind of maps onto some of what we're trying to do as well. So
why don't you explain the comparison with drivers in different cultures?
Sure. So the project will probably lift off in Toyota, Japan, where they have a different take on the elderly than the US does naturally. And the idea there is to make it contextual. I think one of the things that you identified were also some intrinsic motivators for the individual. So to Roger's point, that's gonna be situated differently in context. Americans on their mobile phones like points, right, and simple pixels. Not necessarily every culture will be meaningful for them. So that's something that as this gets translated, all of the slides and the documents that we get, we create naturally gets translated into Japanese and changed. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing will get recontextualized.
The question, Aaron, is do you have people from different cultures in your study, or are they all
great.
Americans?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I wish I would have brought that slide. So yeah, we do have a world map, just tracking now. IPs are spotty because people could be using VPNs that send it through wherever, but we do have a pretty diverse list of countries that are tuning in to the project. We actually have a question in the About Me section that adds zip code, and so every state's covered. We know for a fact because they've manually put in that zip code. But yeah, countries, that's one thing. We do want to make our platform, and that's something that's an ongoing topic, is making the platform just more accessible to people from all over the world. And right now, even in some of our most important measures, like the Proverbs section, right? The one I actually referenced, I can't remember which one it was, but like something like Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, maybe that one's probably more well known, but either way, some of these proverbs that we use may not translate, may not have context that other cultures would get as quickly, and so we're trying to adjust for stuff like that now too.
I guess the provocation I'd like to do, and Cassini can address it later. He was telling me that different drivers drive differently, and the trouble with autonomous vehicles is they treat everybody the same, when in fact Japanese drivers and Texas drivers don't drive the same way. And so you don't, and I really like your comment that your test score, you're testing yourself against yourself, not against other people.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's a fundamental point that you made. Okay, why don't you go ahead and jump in again, and we'll let you talk about Charisma a little bit. I
would absolutely love, just as a side note, I would love to talk more about that, Dr. Cassini. So Charisma is my passion. And one thing I'll say about both these platforms is, as I illustrated when I was Roger's student, biometrics, biofeedback, things like that. I'm really interested in integrating biofeedback into both these projects, especially the BrainHealth Project, as we're building a mobile app in the next year. It's really going to make it give us some ability to collect biofeedback data. So, but Charisma, I'm going to skip the video because it's about another 3 minutes, but I'm just going to give you the kind of elevator pitch on it. So Charisma is a virtual environment where clinicians and participants can meet in social settings and role play scenarios. So a clinician can come into Charisma, they can meet them, set up what the day is going to look like, and then send them off into the virtual world. Maybe they send them to the basketball court. And so as they're traveling to the basketball court, or they're traveling to the coffee shop, the clinician can teleport herself in the virtual world there, switch her avatar to look like a peer, if it's a 15-year-old, they can switch their avatar to look like a 15-year-old peer, and they can teleport to the coffee shop, meet them there, and then they have voice changing software that runs parallel to Charisma. We're trying to get that integrated. And then they can have this social role play that's a little bit more palatable to the participants, so the clients, than sitting across the table and role playing with an adult. So that's kind of the premise of Charisma. But prior to COVID, we were in the middle of a VR pilot study. We had gotten some funding from Unreal MegaGrant program, and we intended to recruit. We had about 12 participants actually going through the VR pilot, and we wanted to transition the screen-based, low immersion virtual world that we had to fully immersive. So we had about 12 people through the early pilot, but then right in the middle of that, COVID hit us. And so all of a sudden, people can't come to labs, people can't share VR headsets, all kinds of things. So really kind of put a full stop on that. But what we did during that time is we transitioned to, browser deliverability. That's one thing that had always been kind of on the backlog, is giving the ability to, because it's a downloadable, like 6 gigabyte, game that is built on Unreal Engine. So shortly before that, Google Stadia had come out. I think we had Amazon Luna, different platforms like that were really using this browser-based delivery model. UE4 had a plugin called Pixel Streaming that we just went head first on, because we knew, especially with the social isolation, that this social training was going to be so important to have a robust platform available when, we didn't expect it to be 2 years, but we knew that there would be some kind of social deficits that were generated from this. So what we did is, first thing we did is, as with all things that I've kind of touched at the center, is I think that these research-based projects, they can't look like research-based products. They can't look like lab-grown products. They need to look like commercial level. Somebody, if they're going to come in and play a game at Center for Brain Health, and they're playing Fortnite, but they come here and it looks like Roblox or something, that's not going to be comparable experience to them. They're not maybe they may not be as immersed because of that and have as good of a reaction. So we really went into rebranding. We rebranded. First off, we had created the Pixel Streaming version so we could deliver it through a browser, but then we needed a website, a portal in which we could deliver that. So much like we had learned from the BrainHealth Project, we jumped into creating that. So then we gave the participants the ability to join those calls in their dashboard. They could see some of the metrics that they had, the time they had spent up certain goals and various, e-learning units that they went through and things like that. But, really give them a unified experience from beginning to end. Now, a typical Charisma series of sessions is, it's just 10 hours of training, but it's over the course of 5 weeks. So they'll come into the dashboard and they'll do all that through the dashboard now.
Okay, so Aaron, I'm going to see if I can get anybody else here into the conversation before Cassini takes over. But I guess what you're doing is you're developing hybrid training for the metaverse. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't like to use that term, but we think that Charisma is
so it's basically a virtual reality performance between several people, I guess, not just 2 people.
Yeah, so generally it can be 2 people, because a clinician can take on the many personas. They have a library of avatars. They can flit in and out of them and take on that persona. They've gotten really good at, they don't have to change their voice because we have the voice changing software for them, but they do have to change their personality with every persona that they use. And so
I think this is you're training actors for theatrical performances. Is that what you're doing?
No, we're mostly SLPs and LPCs, speech language pathologists and licensed counselors. But I'll not lie, a couple of them have theater backgrounds.
Okay, very good.
I'm just looking through a couple of these screens so y'all can see them.
Okay, so we'll share your slides with anybody that wants to look at them. Did you have a final point you'd like to make?
So, we're trying to scale this commercial. I'll go through some of these screens pretty quickly. Charisma really is ready to scale. Right now we're doing a train the trainer program, but if I had a final point to make, I would say we need help.
Oh, you have some jobs. You're recruiting people.
Yeah, right now my team's growing faster than any team in the building. We have 3 developer positions open. We have 2 support specialist position open and an animator position open.
An animator?
Yep.
What is the animator doing?
So the motion designer animator. So we are, for our BrainHealth project, we are taking our traditional kind of business, I mean, really it was designed, our SMART training, our stress, and these learning modules that we have, they were really designed for a business focus, a workplace focus. And now we're trying to take them and make them a little bit more general and a little bit more consumable by, you know, a wider population. So that's really the main goal of the animator, but I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be able to use an animator in Charisma. I'm going to be able to use an animator on several things. So, but yeah, very, very much the BrainHealth Project will be the focus there.
Okay.
Looks like Karen has her hand raised.
So is there anybody with their hand raised? I see someone with their hand raised.
Yeah, hey, so I'm Karen Dorr, and I just wanted to, it's nice to meet you, Aaron. I guess it was in August of 2020 that I came across the Brain Health Center, and at the time I was going through a really challenging time. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess 4 years ago had a family trauma that triggered childhood trauma, and I was doing all the research I could to learn about trauma to heal myself, and I came across the Brain Health Project, and I was just blown away. And since I teach computer science for ATech students, and at the time it started also managing the computer science foundational lab courses, I was able to work with your team and have my students be part of your one of your initial launches. So that was really cool. So I've been able to point engineering students over to you guys' site and keep showing them. I saw Deepak Chopra a couple weeks ago, and so I'm always posting that on Teams, all the content that you guys are providing. I love sharing with my engineering students because it's just beautiful work. So I just wanted to tell you thanks so much. It was just a joy to come across all the stuff that you guys are doing, and yeah, so I'm a big fan. So thank you. And keep
Thank
up
you so much. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I never get to talk to people that participate or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I'm always on the tech side.
Yeah, well, it was nice. It was frustrating because some of the students at the time, right, you guys were filtering out students that had, had any, and actually, I would have, I am a client as well. So, I've gone through a lot of the modules. I fell off, but I'm ready to get back into it. So the quality of the project is so fantastic that I've never dreamed of not being a part of your guys' project. It's like at UTD, it's about the most amazing thing going in terms of what I think is a real research that's really making real progress. So yeah, so thanks for all your work, and the app and everything are just beautiful. So
thank you so much. I'll let you in on a little secret. In the next few months, we're going to be rolling out a complete redesign of a lot of pieces of the platform. One of the biggest questions that we've gotten, and this goes to addressing, like user feedback as it comes in, but one of the biggest questions we got is like, I don't know what to do next. And so we're really trying to answer that question. We're giving you an additional tab that it directly tells you, here's the 3 things you could do to improve your brain health today. And so that's going to be rolling out in the next few months. We are still partnering with Alexa, who we were nominated we were a finalist in the Fast Company Innovation by Design Wellness category last year, which we're really proud of for the work that we did with them. So. Yeah.
The timing with COVID was just amazing because, I'm trying to teach my students how to model experience through the lens of trauma and teaching them all that we're all, COVID is a global trauma. So we're all essentially kind of working through trauma and that the importance of being and all that. So to be able to point to you guys as a resource is just beautiful. So,
and that's the beauty of data sets, so now we were able to push out, in that vein, we were able to push out a survey to ask people if they wanted to volunteer the information, if they had COVID. And now you have a very clear way to look at that data set separately if we want, and so that's the beauty of the platform, is it allows us to do these surveys where we can drill down in and do these nested studies while we're still doing the larger 10-year longitudinal study.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that you guys are accepting, everybody and not filtering out people with mental health challenges or whatever. So
yeah, the first few papers that were pushed out, it was kind of a requirement because we had to validate the index and things like that. But we've published our initial 2 now, and I'm personally looking at a esports kind of cohort that we want to do as a nested study. So yeah, it's really interesting, and we welcome researchers from main campus. If anybody's interested in maybe using the platform for some collaboration, we would be open to those conversations.
Okay, so we have time for another question for someone online. Anybody want to jump in? Silence is golden. I don't think that translates to Japanese.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So this is open. This benchmark is open. What if you've been diagnosed with depression, as many of us have?
There's I want to say there's still a few things that the screener, I don't know the list off the top of my head, but there's still a few screener questions that are disqualifying. But most of the questions on the screener, if you were to go to the BrainHealthProject.org, you could sign up. But most of the questions are purely for, as I was saying, the data set to make it more robust and give us the ability to look at like individual populations and things like that. But there are just a few things on there that are still disqualifying, and some of them, if you reach out to support, like some of the questions are tricky, and people will put, that one of the questions is, can you, do you have, are you able to read things on the screen? And so if you answer no to that kind of cuts out some of that training, which is a disqualifying thing. But a lot of people read the question wrong, so we have to go ahead and greenlight those. We always check on anyone that gets disqualified for that. So yeah, it's a lot more open than it was.